I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I didn't even cry when my son told me I no longer belonged in the house I had spent my life building. Instead, I smiled, stirred my tea, and asked him what time he'd be home from work the next day. He never wondered why. He never imagined that by the time he returned, the locks would be changed, the papers signed, and the life he assumed was his gone. Welcome to my YouTube channel Whisper Stories, where silence speaks. My name is Anna, and I am 71 years old, and the moment my life quietly tipped from familiar ground into free fall didn't come with a scream or a slammed door. It came with a sentence spoken over a mug of cooling tea in my own kitchen by the boy I once rocked to sleep. "Mom," my son said, not unkindly, not gently either, "it's time you moved out." The words hung in the air like dust motes caught in a single beam of morning light. They didn't land with a crash. They didn't even sound cruel. They sounded practical, final, as if he were telling me the fridge needed replacing or the roof needed fixing. I remember nodding, smiling even. Old habits die hard. Mothers learn early how to swallow pain quietly. What he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I had already decided something of my own. And it would change everything. Before the sentence, I had lived in that house for 43 years. Every inch of it knew me. The hallway still creaked in the same place where my husband, Peter, used to sneak in late from night shifts. The kitchen window bore a faint scratch from the day my son, Daniel, was 8 and tried to help me carrying groceries with a bicycle helmet still on his head. Peter had died 12 years earlier, a quiet heart attack in the garden, dirt still under his nails. After that, the house felt too big and yet impossibly small, every room echoing with memories. Daniel moved back in temporarily 5 years ago after his divorce. Temporary stretched the way it often does when parents are involved. First it was just him, then came his new girlfriend Marissa, then her opinions. I paid the taxes, I paid the utilities. The house was in my name, bought and paid for with decades of work, sacrifice and love, but slowly, subtly it stopped feeling like mine. Marissa rearranged the furniture. Daniel replaced my old curtains without asking. My favorite chair was moved to the garage to make space. And I let it happen. Because mothers do that. We tell ourselves love is compromise. We confuse patience with self-erasure. The day he said it, "It's time you moved out," he said it like a schedule update. He talked about assisted living brochures, about how it would be better for everyone, about how Marissa was pregnant and they needed space. Space. As if I were clutter. I asked quietly, where would I go? He hesitated just long enough to wound. "We'll help you figure something out." Wait. I looked around the kitchen, the table Peter built, the cabinet with the loose hinge Daniel once slammed in a teenage rage, my life reduced to a problem to be solved. That night I cried into a towel so no one would hear me. But something else happened too. Something hardened. A door I had forgotten. A week later I took a bus downtown. I hadn't told anyone where I was going. I walked into a small real estate office that smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and hope. The agent, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes, asked, "How can I help you?" I surprised myself with how steady my voice was. "I'd like to sell my house." She blinked. "Are you sure?" "Yes," I said, "very." We sat down, papers appeared, numbers were discussed. I learned my home was worth far more than I had imagined. When I walked back out into the sun, my hands were shaking, but my spine felt straighter than it had in years. Silence is a plan too. I didn't tell Daniel. I cooked dinner, I folded laundry, I nodded along to conversations about paint colors for the nursery that would never be built in that house. Showings happened while they were at work. I packed quietly, carefully, a lifetime distilled into labeled boxes. Every item I wrapped felt like reclaiming something stolen. The house sold fast, a young couple, first baby on the way, they loved the garden. I smiled when I heard that. On the day the papers finalized, I sat alone in the empty living room. The walls were bare, the air felt different, lighter somehow. I whispered thank you to no one and everyone. The call. Daniel called me at noons. "Mom," he said, confused then alarmed. "There are people here, they say they bought the house." Yes, I replied, calm as still water. That's right. What do you mean? His voice rose. You can't just... I can, I said, and I did. Silence crackled through the phone. You sold my house, he finally said. I closed my eyes. No, Daniel, I sold my house. Marissa could be heard in the background, sharp and panicked. Where are we supposed to go? He demanded. I paused, not to be cruel, but to be honest. You'll figure something out, I said. And for the first time in my life, I hung up on my child. Starting over at 71, I moved into a small seaside town 3 hours away, a modest apartment with white walls and windows that let in the sound of waves. I bought myself a new chair, one that fit me. I joined a book club. I took morning walks. I learned that my knees still worked, that my laughter still sounded like mine. Loneliness came sometimes, but it was clean loneliness, not the kind that eats at you while you're surrounded by people who don't see you. Daniel didn't call for months. Then one evening he did. The reckoning. I was wrong, he said. No excuses, no blaming Marissa, just that. He told me they were staying with friends, that becoming a parent had scared him, that he had assumed I would always bend. I didn't think you'd leave, he admitted. I didn't leave, I said softly. I chose myself. He cried. I let him. Forgiveness is a bridge, but it doesn't mean returning to the same shore. We talk now carefully, honestly. He visits, he asks before he sits, before he speaks. He sees me now. What I learned. I am Anna, 71 years old, and I learned something too late, but not too late to matter. Love does not require disappearance. Motherhood does not mean surrendering your dignity. And it is never selfish to protect the life you built with your own hands. Sometimes the bravest thing a woman can do, at any age, is stand up, pack her memories and walk into a future she chooses. Moral. Respect that is demanded is rarely given. Respect that is claimed, quietly, firmly, changes everything.